Good morning, guys. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case may be, wherever you're tuning in from. You're very, very welcome to another episode of RedFellas on a Sunday evening, UK time, 9 p.m. Hope you're all doing very, very well. Sunday night, where we usually have some Premier League action to talk about, especially in terms of Liverpool, but of course, unfortunately, the events of this week, namely the unfortunate passing away of Her Queen, the Majesty, has meant no Premier League football. In fact, no football in UK, wasn't it? No football on all sort of levels. No football. So therefore, we don't have a game per se to talk about, but we have plenty of other topics around Liverpool Football Club to talk about. In fact, we can possibly talk about the Napoli game. In fact, I may start on that. Unfortunately, I do like torturing the panel, so therefore I shall be torturing you and talking about the Napoli game. But of course, first and foremost, I'd like to welcome everyone in the chat. Very, very welcome. There's over 100 of you guys waiting for us, which is absolutely humbling and beautiful to see on a Sunday night. I saw a really good comment here from Robbie. He says, from the greatest living Britain to RedFellas, Sundays aren't so bad. Not bad at all. Guys, of course, RedFellas on a Sunday night is now sponsored by yourfutcard.com. Magnificent website that makes amazing FUT cards. I now have some samples to hand. My God. Absolute beautiful cards. I'm not joking. Diaz, I don't know if you agree with some of his stats there. You can even get some classics like the King himself. Wow. Steve, what do you think about that one? I know you're a big fan of good old King Kenny. I mean, that is a beauty, isn't it? It's an absolute thing of beauty right there.
That's the same picture my mum painted for me because she's an artist. So I've got that in oil by my mum. It's really iconic picture.
Oh, wow.
So the boys have done us proud with that one, mate. I have to say, they'll never get anything other than praise for Kenny Dalglish from me, mate.
I tell you, obviously we've got the King of Egypt himself. Yeah, we're going to speak on you, son. But still, the fact of the matter is he's still our king. We don't care, of course. Virgil van Dijk himself. I mean, obviously, these are the Liverpool prints. I mean, absolute beautiful quality. They come with sort of little stickers on the back that you can just use and just stick up anywhere you want. And as you guys can see, I've posted on Twitter enough. You've got the main man himself there. Like,
is that January, the new January signing? Just get.
I tell you what, everyone's been asking, can he play in midfield with stats like that?
Can he play it right back?
I mean, I could play in most positions. Obviously, haters will say that's fake stats, you know.
Nah, man, you've been into settings and adjusted that, mate.
I was going to say that you've got the foot golf whippage, Grizz, so you'd be sound.
You see that reaction? That's the reaction to haters. Take it in, people. Just take it in. But listen, people,
you look like a good manager there. I could see you on the touchline with that picture. Honestly, I could see you.
If you want amazing, brilliant FUT cards made for your children, for your nephews, nieces, relatives, even adults love them, go and check out yourfutcard.com. You type in RedFellas in the discount code and you get 15% off. They not only make FUT cards, they make absolute brilliant banners. I've actually got a RedFellas one, but I've absolutely made a cock up of it and forgot to unfold it right now. So I'm not going to leave the stream and go and get it. But it's a magnificent banner of RedFellas. You can get any customized banners made as well, and prints of any eventful or memorable goals or scenes. So you can have the Divock Origi header against Everton. You just go on their website, you see if they can get hold of that. It's a fantastic website. They help us, you help us, everyone's a winner. Go and check them out, yourfutcard.com, and use the code for anything you want. And it's a simple code, RedFellas, 15% off. Guys, welcome. Everyone's here. Not going to ask how you guys are. I pretty much know the answer to a T. So I don't want to bore the chat already to see how you guys are doing. Conroy, I'm going to come to you. What has been your fix this week? And instead of football, have you been watching any other football? I don't know. I know you're a fan of some European leagues, or have you just avoided it completely?
Yeah, no, to be fair, I do always try to catch the greatest players ever played if he's on a pitch. So I always watch him. That doesn't matter if Liverpool are playing or not. So I watched the PSG game yesterday, and that was really it, to be honest. But I tend to watch the PSG games most weeks, to be honest, and just to actually watch how Gautier is actually working that system quite well. Which most people would say that's an impossible job. Still possibly could be, but I caught that game, and that's basically it. I know yourself, Grizz, you were asking on Twitter the main games this weekend in the European leagues, and I think there were some cracking games in Germany especially. But yeah, I just watched that game, chilled out, went to the cinema today. Done a few things like that. It was a good night. It was a good night. If anyone's, I would recommend went to see Bodies, Bodies, Bodies today. Kind of whodunit horror comedy. It's quite good.
Oh, I love stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
I
quite
watched one of the last films I watched at cinema. Don't laugh. Is Murder on the Orient Express, something like that. What's it called?
Yeah. The Hercule Poirot, the Agatha Christie.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Kenneth Branagh or Kenneth Branagh. The Irish.
So is it similar to that? Is it something like? Obviously,
It's a bit more like a kind of I was going to say Gen Z, but it's a younger version, like kind of younger crowd of people. It's just a kind of like a whodunit, but it's quite clever.
A younger crowd. So you're having a go at me?
No, but it's the actual cast are quite young in it. Lee Pace is in it. He's a bit older, but it's like Pete Davidson and stuff like that, kind of younger actors. But it's pretty good. If you want a good film like that, though, Grizz, you should watch Knives Out. That's a brilliant film.
I've seen that.
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah,
that is brilliant. I love shit like this. People nominate, please, more stuff like that. Yeah, I love films like that. People, if you know of any good movies like that, let me know in the chat as well. Jamie, watched any football over the weekend or thought Liverpool need a break? You need a break. We all need a break.
Well, luckily for me, I had the team that I coached, the freshman team from Somerville, the city where I'm from. So we've had, I'm not lying here, we've had 2 games, 20 goals scored, 1 goal conceded. So I'm just thinking of ways of how I can get those goals over to Liverpool and to not concede, albeit just 2 games. But yeah, the boys have been saving me lately. So it's been great with that. And it's a huge honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be here. So I'm so excited for Sunday night in RedFellas, Grizz.
No, it's absolute pleasure having you on. Obviously, Evan absolutely bottled it, chickened out. He can't make it tonight. He's so stressed about Liverpool and everything. So we thought we can't let your side of the pond not have a representative. So you got the call up, and I'm sure you'll do that side of the pond proud. Hello, Steve. How you doing, mate? Busy week for you?
Yeah, very much so, mate. Non-stop, really, from start to finish. And even got to spend some time in the company of my mate Mick there this week, which was pretty cool. But yeah, busy week, mate. And this weekend, mate, I've had a sport-free weekend. To be honest with you, mate, I didn't even watch the Grand Prix today, mate. I'm having a detox completely from it for a couple of days, mate. But back tonight with a bang, and as ever, mate, always a pleasure to join the boys to talk all things Liverpool. And I'm sure we'll get into some pretty good detail on this. So yeah, Sunday night, RedFellas, here we are.
Here we are indeed, Mick. How you doing, mate? Did you manage to catch up with much football over the weekend, or did you just spend it in the boozer as you do sometimes?
No, I'm like Steve. Kind of, just switched off from all footy. Just watched some films, TV series. Watched a little bit of I think the Conroy mentioned it was the PSG game. Watched a bit of that, but nothing too strenuous. I just thought it's a good way to detox from a bit of a mad season so far. And like Steve said, nice to meet him on Monday in person at Redmen HQ. That was a nice little touch. That was a good start to the week. That feels like ages ago, Steve. It doesn't feel like it was only on Monday.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. And you speak about sort of mad week or mad start to the season and whatnot. Conroy, I want to take it back, and I wanted to chat to you guys about sort of, and a disclaimer, people. Obviously, before we start, this is not a show where we're here to give answers to solutions or solutions to problems, because realistically, we don't have them. What we're here to do is be your everyday fans, have a chat, and stream it at the same time. You may agree with our opinions, you may disagree with our opinions, but I hope you show respect to the rest of the panel, whether you disagree or agree. As I said, we won't have the answers, I'm afraid. Well, we may do, flukily, but we won't knowingly say, oh, this is fact and this is how we fix a problem. We're here to have a chat. And here we go. Conroy, the season, I'm going to take you back because we've got a nice little break, apparently. Obviously, there's rumours that the fixtures may be back, league fixtures may be back next week. But me and Steve were just talking, and we think it's highly unlikely because of the funeral being in London, of course, and our game being in London. I think the London games would be in jeopardy. But obviously, we'll see how that goes. Conroy, the season ends. Yes, I'm going back. The season ends on a bit of a downer. And do you remember we'd done our first pre-season show and we were like, we're not sure if we're ready. Are we ready? I'm not sure. As fan base, as fans, we weren't sure if we're unready. If we were not sure about being back so quickly, how much do the players felt, do you reckon? Especially the ones that probably not as mentally as strong as some in the group, because it was a bit of a damp squib at the end. Even though we had that parade, there was an element of so close yet so far.
Yeah, no, you could say that, Grizz. I think what I thought about this the other day as well, actually. I think we've kind of grew accustomed to the precedent that they've set. So, for example, we lost the Champions League final to Madrid, first time Kiev. We bounced back straight away. Klopp said that, singing at that night saying we'll come back next year. And amazingly, we do. We win it. And in the same season, that was when we beat Barca as well, when we've been behind 3-0, lost the league in that day. The following season, they come back, they win the league, by a landslide that year as well. So I think, to be honest, in my head, is like after the Champions League final, when Klopp says, well, book tickets for next year will be here, I'll be honest, like I'm quite a logical, realistic person, but even I'm like, no, I believe that squad can do it because they've got that mentality. And I'm not on about mentality monsters. I don't say that a lot, but they've just got that mentality of this is how much it hurts. And we don't want to feel this pain again. And we go again. But I think, to be honest, Grizz, I think what's happened is we've done a lot last season as well. And there's maybe numerous factors that have led to where we are right now. And I'm not jumping on, it's just that. It could be numerous things. But either way, that's just kind of stopped that flow very early this season to, I wouldn't say eradicate those dreams, because you can still get the Champions League final, but it's definitely kind of knocked us all as a fan base the last couple of weeks. But to be honest, Grizz, I believe what Klopp was saying. I've seen us do it before and I thought we could do it again. We still can. But I just felt like I was ready for the start of the season, because the thing is with this squad, if you lose, you feel that pain. You don't want to feel it again. I don't know about you guys, but see that final especially, that was one of the worst, because it was just like Ancelotti comes out and says, we're that predictable. And that's like a kick in the stones in that game. It's like you need to look at things. We can't just fall into that trap. So I thought they'd be raring to go. Obviously, it's not worked out like that, but that was my initial feelings at the start of the season, Grizz.
Jamie, was you ready to go? Was you ready? Well, tell us how you felt at the start of the season, and if those feelings, or because one of the most popular things, or seemingly popular on social media, is the "I told you so" side of the fan base. I told you so. How was you at the start of the season? And are you saying "I told you so" to your close associates, mates, friends, relatives, that you saw this coming? Just how was you feeling at the start of the season? Do you think it came too soon, or was you ready for it? And did you think Liverpool, more importantly, were ready for it?
This team has battled through so many wars and so many situations. And just to go back to the point of which you were asking Conroy at the Champions League final, I just got to say it. This is not an excuse. This is just an objective observation. Whenever we play Madrid, seemingly something weird happens. And I just have to throw that out there, right? Like with the Champions League final, I feel like if it wasn't for the parade, there would have been a longer hangover and a deeper amount of feelings towards what happened, because that was not okay, what happened in Paris. And when that game started, I wasn't able to think about the game because I was worried about the supporters going to the match. I can only imagine what the players who had friends and family going to that game were thinking about before that game. So just to get that out of there. But I can't be telling you I told you so, because after that Manchester City game, I was absolutely flying. You know what I mean? I thought, wow, we're really going to go for it. This is giving me vibes of 1920, where I think everyone knows here, with the way the World Cup schedule is and with the way that we've gone and seen this before, how we have to attack the Premier League to win it. Because now that we've won it, we have sort of a blueprint, or at least one way that we have achieved that success. Because in those dog wars with City, we've come up short 2 times. And I mean, you can go back to last season and that handball at Everton, right? I mean, I'm not going to make excuses, but it's just such a fine line. But I was raring to go. I thought that the team had a good chance. I will admit that I was skeptical about not bringing a midfielder in until we brought Artur Melo in. But this is after the City game, and I'm considering the City game the start of the season. And I'm assuming that was in coordination with maybe potentially something that happened with Naby, because when Klopp said, oh, ironically, you were all right, I was wrong, I think something must have happened behind closed doors, whether it was an injury or whether it was something else. But in any case, no, I felt full of confidence. I was happy that we had signed Darwin Nunez. I thought that the Calvin Ramsey signing made a lot of sense, and I thought that we would be up, ready to go. I didn't think we'd win 15 games on the bounce, but I didn't imagine that we'd be here now.
Jezza says, people also not taking into consideration the mental and emotional toll after coming so close to both major honours. With or without injuries, there would have been a bit of a hangover, Steve. People reading this will automatically say, oh, what excuses from Liverpool fans. Shut up about mental hangover. I've got news for you. Jez is a Chelsea fan, and a very, very well-spoken Chelsea fan. So he is suggesting this, not a Liverpool fan. So thank you very much for that comment. Cameron Clark, Carlton TV. Who remembers Carlton TV? Do you guys remember? Steve should remember Carlton TV. They used to be like a, yeah. Anyway, we won't get into that. Give my age away. Season came too soon, and Klopp should probably have given them an extra week off. He says, Steve, is there any meat to the bone in terms of the hangover? Have we seen this before? Should we have envisaged this? Even suggestions that we overworked them in pre-season, because some may say that a couple of ways of setting up for the first game of the season is you can sort of have them absolutely match ready or ease them in. We kind of went for the match ready approach, didn't we? And worked him really hard, double sessions every single day, touring Malaysia, was it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Malaysia, wasn't it? And then the Austrian camp and the German camp. And hindsight, is there a case, would you have done anything different maybe, especially on the back of the season that we've had, playing every single game, a few niggling injuries, a few players that are injury prone, slightly elderly, I'm hastening to add. Would you have worked it differently? Is there something to criticize from that aspect?
First of all, taking into consideration the comments, I don't think there is a hangover. Professional footballers, professional sports people get over disappointment a lot quicker than the fans do. You only have to listen to the post-match interviews where they ask them really difficult questions. I think Virgil van Dijk summed it up quite well when he said, we just have to come back and try harder next year. That they're not hung up by that. They don't spend weeks getting over it. It's their job. This is our passion and our escapism from the real world. That's their job. So I have a different mentality to football fans. With regards to pre-season, my understanding is they absolutely wanted to make a statement in the Charity Shield, given the opposition. So they got themselves ready for that and went and won the game well. And I shared Jamie's comments about, off the back of that, we thought, here we go, we're going to have a really strong season. You can't legislate for mental fatigue, and mental fatigue leads to physical fatigue as well. It's the hardest thing to try and get your head around, and it's the hardest thing to try and iron out of players. And there is a little bit of that. But, this is a point Mick and I make frequently when we speak on various things, whether we're collectively or separated. We're blooding a new front three in real time, and it's really, really hard to do. So you've got Diaz. Take the Everton game, for instance. Everything everything in front of Fabinho was new. All of the permutations, all of the link-ups, all of the partnerships. The front three hadn't played with that midfield before. There's a risk. There's a risk element in trying to do that in league games in real time. We just haven't had the time. It's a short pre-season, and we haven't had the time to work in all the areas we would want to work in. And then Nunez's 3-game suspension really doesn't help with his acclimatation to being in the side. So, would I have done anything differently? It's not really for me to say. I was really enthused by the performance in the Charity Shield. I was really pleased by how the boys looked, and I think certainly in the second half when Nunez came on, we got one-on-one with Ruben Diaz so many times, and for me, we flushed out the myth that he's Van Dijk-esque, because he really wasn't on the day. It's tough at the moment. I don't think we've legislated for the change in the Premier League. The fact that the teams around us have all improved, and now this high back line, particularly for us, doesn't work. So I don't think we legislated for the change in what was coming in terms of the opposition. We would never have expected Fulham to be that strong on day one, for instance. Maybe we were a touch complacent in regards, look what we did last season. It's just a case of let's go and do it again. So maybe in hindsight we would have looked at that slightly differently, but I don't think there's a psychological hangover or a feeling sorry for ourselves for not winning the 2 big trophies last season. I just think that this is 5-6 years now as a squad for most of these guys, and we've asked a hell of a lot from these. Our gameplay is very, very intense, and Andy Robbo's a great example of running your blood to water, and then suddenly you find yourself out of form and you need a break. Well, because of injuries, we can't give players breaks, and I think that becomes really, really difficult. So I'm not in the hangover camp. I'm in the mental fatigue camp, and hence the title. I think there's a little bit of reinvention to do, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
We absolutely will. We absolutely will. I think reinvention has been this week's buzzword, hasn't it? As with everything, every week there's a new buzzword. I guess, Mick, that Community Shield, I'm pretty much with Jamie and Steve after that Community Shield, and not just because of the Community Shield, just the state of the squad at that time. I actually made us favourites for the league this season. Obviously, a lot has happened that's made me change my mind on that. But was you the same after that Community Shield? Did you have, or did you still see areas of the squad maybe, or players' mentalities, or did you see anything like the start that we've had? Did you envisage any of this going into the first game even? Or maybe let's get into the first game after Fulham.
No, I agree with everyone. Like, just from the evidence of the City game, that to me was like we're going to start to make a statement, and kind of like Jamie mentioned, like a condensed season up until the World Cup. I thought we'd really we'd smash it, and we'd absolutely go and make a big deal of trying to get as many points as we can to try and come back after the World Cup and then have maybe a healthy lead on top. And I know that's obviously very far from the truth in terms of where we are at the moment, but when on the back of last season, how good we were in that City game, I thought that would be a great sign for what we can do this season. But yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to go to like the Pep Linders chat, and that was just after the City game, and he mentioned like getting ready for the City game, and it was like all our intentions was to get ready for that City game, and it's like we were ready for that City game, but then the Fulham game after was just like we can't legislate for. I mean, Steve rightly mentioned, like we weren't at the races, and it was just too easy to play against at the minute. And I don't think anyone could have really envisioned how we've played this season. I think it's one of those things that it needs to change and very quickly. But I think it's easy to say now, like we should have maybe invested in the midfield and stuff like that, because like we've all mentioned, it's like a ball over the top. Like the game against the last game, that just reminded me of when we played Roma in the Champions League a few years back, and we beat them 5-2. And it was like all we were doing is playing a ball over the top, and we had about 20 shots that night and only scored 5. And it was like all you have to do is play a ball over the top and we'll score. And that's kind of where we're at the moment. People are just doing that to us because the pressing isn't there. And I go back to what Pep Linders was saying. His book was called Intensity, and then obviously this is all getting dragged up on social media, saying he makes a book called Intensity, and then Liverpool's intensity just evaporates overnight. So it's quite ironic, but it's yeah. I don't think
Sorry.
None of us could have predicted it, is what I'm saying in a nutshell.
It's ironic. It's absolutely ironic, but there's zero correlation. So if people are actually attributing the performances of Liverpool to a book in the opening 5-6 games, is it, of the league? Good luck finding a correlation to that. Conroy, we start the season and yeah, look, we are where we are right now, moving it forward without going into the games and whatnot. Injuries, especially in one area of the pitch, suggest a weakness, as Steve says, in terms of rotation, selection headaches. We call for system changes. When I say we call for, we expect maybe, or we think there might be a system change to counter the injury situations, and we discussed it all summer. None of that has happened so far. Yet we find ourselves in the position that we are. This is on the back of, like you said, Carlo Ancelotti suggesting we are very predictable. He meant it in a good way at the time. I think that we're so brilliantly predictable, but obviously you take the negative from it depending on your outlook. Have you been disappointed with the general planning and thinking and tactics maybe thus far?
I think for me, Grizz, it's not like, it's the 6 games or so far in the season. I think it's, you look at that overall, there is, I'd say with the last couple, it's been quite obvious or quite apparent that you can't play the way you want to play. And the Napoli one was just the icing. Sorry, what's the word? Was it the camel's back? The straw that broke the camel's back? Is that the right phrase? That was the one. But I still will debate with anyone. The United was just as bad. Just Napoli were a better team who could cut us more easily. That's the difference. United was still horrendous. I'm going to speak about that game for the next year because it deserves to be spoken about because they were that bad and a huge fixture. So for me, there was obvious signs in those games that you have to adapt. Doesn't mean throwing the baby out the bathwater in philosophy, but playing a high line, as Steve says, that high, going 5-10 yards back if you want to do that, putting 2 DMs in for the pivot. But there's numerous things you can try, but not try to do a Jurgen Klopp gegenpress against Napoli, who players have seen ways of getting around in the blueprints there, and to just play into the hands, and that's what it is. Like it or lump it, if you're that good, the blueprint's there, right? And teams will know how to beat you. And the fact that we're not changing our way to even, make them think twice about that, to me, that's not it's not very smart, is it, going into these games? So for me, I'm disappointed. There has to be moments where you'd be like, you know what, we have to look at this, we have to adapt this, because at the end of the day, that's management, that's tactics. You don't. By the way, by dropping 5-10 yards doesn't mean we don't play with this philosophy. But if you've not got the tools to do that, you have to adapt. And I don't think it's that crazy a thing. Like, I just don't get it. I know Grizz said this last week, but it's not rocket science. Like, and what I'm saying is, I understand there's you look at football, the top managers, there's technical parts. You can say that they know much more, and of course it's a high standard. But in this standard, you could tell in the first 30 seconds against Napoli that high line was going to get exploited all night. The other thing is the decoy runs by midfielders now, like secondary midfield runs. Zielinski had our defence on toast all night because he kept doing a decoy run, and either you had the 2 wingers, I can never pronounce the Georgian guy's name, running in behind. I know we discussed this in the post-match, Grizz, but that's apparent. You need to make tweaks, you need to change it, and I fully expect something to happen for the next game, and I think it has to, because if that doesn't scream to you that this is not working, getting battered 4-1 by Napoli, which could have been 6 or 7, by the way, easily. They missed a penalty and hit the post as well, and one cleared off the line. Then I don't know what will, but I think we will. We will have to adapt. The high line, that high a line, is not going to work going forward right now because, firstly, our defence have got zero confidence. Our midfield can't press. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So what you have to do, you have to defend for a bit. You have to show, do you know what? Football was basic sometimes, and I think we need to go back to that for a bit. A few scrappy wins would do that team lots of confidence. Personally, the 9-0 win at Bournemouth done absolutely, going to swear there, it done absolutely nothing. I was going to say, you know, something odd, but we'll not say that. Actually, it taught us nothing. A few scrappy wins would do more for this team than any 9-0 win against a championship team, because that's, and no disrespect to Bournemouth, but come on, you could tell it was more them being poor than us being great in retrospect.
Jamie, we went into the Champions League game this midweek, on the back of a frustrating draw in the Merseyside derby. We still have to remember we didn't lose it. Imagine the mood or the state of depression if we had lost that one as well. So we as frustrating as it is and as shit as they have been, we didn't lose, we didn't concede, but we didn't score. And he was bold in his selection in the Merseyside derby. He was brave. Us guys are in a WhatsApp group, and we were all to a man like, whoa, okay. You know, this is something different. This is something brave. Nunes up front, straight back in. 2 youngsters in midfield. Klopp's got his balls back. I'm just going to say how I think and feel. I can't think of any better words to use. Because me personally, Jamie, I thought Klopp's lost that edge he had when he first came. Sort of the fearlessness he had. He was absolutely unforgiving in terms of his selections, whether it's young, old. If you're good enough, you're playing. Home or away, brave, attacking the opposition, no inhibitions. And I've sometimes suggested that he's become more pragmatic, which is not a bad thing. And right now we'd ask for more pragmatism, like what Conrad is saying. But I couldn't for the life of me understand the selection of Napoli. Now, some may, and we'll get onto them, because I think Steve did understand it. I didn't understand it. I thought to myself, I didn't see the merits. Or
do you mean positionally though, Grizz, or do you mean personnel?
Personnel-wise and position-wise, I was disheartened by it. That's just me. But I didn't express that straight away, because how many times has this team, has this coach, has these players slapped us in the face and showed us, you guys don't know what you're talking about. We do. But this is 2 games in a row now where we've kind of been not proved right, but you know what I mean? Our worst fears, like worst fears being proven right, I guess. That was the brave selection against Everton, but the wrong game. And this was the wrong selection where it's supposed to be the brave selection, because the first game of away to Napoli, you can easily lose. But the manner of this defeat, for me, was shocking, Jamie.
You know, it's one of those things where we've talked about it, but when you have injuries in a side, more problems accumulate, because if you have a player who's not playing well, who's not playing on form, there's nothing there to give them the motivation of, here, if you don't do your job, there's someone next in line to come take that spot from you, to give you that extra incentive and motivation. I mean, I think that one of the things that has really, really hampered us is having Thiago as well as Ibrahima Konate out at the same time. And I wasn't surprised when Thiago went out because of his injury record. And so it wasn't a huge hit to me. I knew our general level would drop because he's a world-class player and he can do things on the pitch. But for me, Ibrahima Konate, when he went out, it was like, oh my goodness, oh my days. Because in terms of the center backs who we have, Gomez and Van Dijk had been coming back from long-term injuries last year. Matip has never really gotten over 30 games a year at Liverpool until last season, I believe. I could be wrong. And so with Konate, the high line is something that can function in terms of, if you have a one-on-one battle, he's an absolute machine. He can go out and get that ball in the air versus so many strikers in the world. And if he misses, he has that speed, agility, and pace to recover. We don't have that situation right now. We also go to other players on the pitch. And I brought this up on the review at Crystal Palace. and I talked about our confidence shifting to arrogance a bit. And I referenced that in terms of when Fabinho and Trent went out to go get, I believe it was Eze on the wing, and Trent sort of got in Fabinho's way. Fabinho misses the tackle, sort of leaves a sheepish leg out, and then ends up running into Trent. And then my immediate perception was, once Ez is on the break, Fabinho and Trent are on the jog. And I'm just thinking, in any line of sports, when you make a defensive error where someone is getting a counterattack on your goal, whatever sport it may be, and you're responsible for not stopping that, your intention should be to run after that as fast as you can. And I saw that a little bit in the Napoli game as well. And this is the thing for me where it's like, okay, we can play badly and Trent cannot have his best games. But the thing that is absolutely unacceptable to me is looking like you don't care. And there have been several times this year where maybe it's his body language, maybe it's been a situation where if he hasn't reacted quickly enough, he seems to not react at all, or he hasn't run after the play. And this is something where if we had Ramsey fit from the beginning of the year, I believe this is a player who would have been pushing him somewhat similar to how Costas has pushed Robbo, and in turn developed not only his own career, but also stabilized those positions for Liverpool where you're getting consistency. And so for me, as I was saying, I think the injuries do cause more problems. If you want to talk about in the midfield, should we have signed a player there or not? Okay, fine. But for me, I think some players have to perceive, even though we've been there and done that, the game is still evolving and Liverpool is a huge scalp. Every single game that other teams play against Liverpool, they're coming for blood because it's a famous victory for them if they win.
Steve, I absolutely agree with we're a big scalp and every team should obviously be up for it. But there's absolutely zero excuses in terms of we shouldn't be up for it and we shouldn't be ready for it. Never mind the players, but the coach as well, Steve. And I mentioned the coach because I want to get I can't remember what our conversations were on the morning, but can I get your opinion on the lineup and if you could make sense of it in terms of the way we were going to play with the personnel, with the formation, and if so, give your opinion. I was going to say ask for explanation. As I said, we may not have the answers, but if so, your opinion on why by the 50th minute, the expected goals against us was 4.25, which I believe is the highest ever against our team. When we had virtually, I don't want to speak on it because I'm still that down about it. It was knife through butter. It was simplistic. They didn't have to put many beautifully crafted moves together. It was some of the most simplistic balls over the line, over the top. Just give me your thoughts and opinions on what happened in that first 50 minutes.
Yeah, I think that we went there, given current form, to have a pragmatic side out to make ourselves difficult to beat. You can look at the midfield that shows that. Conroy's exactly right. I think decoy runner is Conroy's phrase, and third man running are one in the same. We're just too easy to play against at the moment. And the difficulty being, and I'll take Jamie's point on Khanage, and I'll touch on that quickly. Yes, Khanage is good in the air. Yes, Kanate's got pace. If you've got guys running from midfield at you and they've been at top speed for 10, 15 yards, they go past you, you're not catching them. And that's what we're seeing at the moment with Liverpool. That third man running ball where you set it back into midfield and you've got your runner and he's in behind and you play it in. Conroy's right to reference Manchester United because that was a massive feature in that game and very hard to watch. So I think we went to Napoli with one eye on our form, one eye on what the game was, and our record in Napoli of never having won there. It's a difficult place to go. We find it particularly difficult. And I don't think we went there with too much desire to be expansive, too much desire to play with any risk. I think we tried to have what we hold. To come away from there with a 0-0 draw, given how the season started, would have been considered a little bit of a triumph in terms of you've got a point on the board in what is your most difficult tie in the group stages of the Champions League.
We got our fingers well and truly burnt trying that tactic. And I don't know, looking at it in hindsight, Grizz, and looking at who's available, I don't know if we had the personnel available in and around the squad to affect that too much, because Darwin Núñez remains a conundrum we've got to solve in terms of we've got to find where his football intelligence lies, and we've got to utilise that. And as I said before, we're still learning on the job. We still don't know enough about him. He doesn't know enough about us. We've got Luis Diaz, who doesn't deserve to be playing in the team with this form, with the effort he's putting in and the goals he's scoring and the chances he's creating. Must be frustrating for him. Much is made of the Mane moving to Bayern Munich story, but arguably our best player is playing in Mane's position. So I'd counter that argument and say our top performer alongside Harvey Elliott is playing in Mane's position. I just don't think we went there with a view to playing in a way that potentially would ask questions of Napoli and win the game. And sometimes in European football, you can do that. I've seen that for 40 years where Liverpool have gone away and done professional jobs in Europe, and they're containment jobs. And the first thing you do is silence the fans, and the first thing you do is take the sting out of the game. But you can't do that if you're giving the ball away. And when you give the ball away, you've not got enough about you to win it back. And then finally, you're allowing players to run off you. They're a very intelligent football team, Napoli. Zielinski, Shav Maradona, as they're calling him, the guy that absolutely tore us to shreds in the middle of the park, with little touches around the corner and then running after his own little flicks and touches. Absolutely, they had a field day. That was a very, very easy night's work for Napoli. That needs to be our Tottenham Hotspur moment. And I reference Tottenham Hotspur, I mean the game when they beat us 4-1 and Dejan Lovren had an absolute nightmare. We went on a run following that game of improvement, sort of week in, week out. That has to be the bottom of the barrel, the result against Napoli. That has to be the lowest point of the season. It has to be the lowest point for many, many more games to come. So I don't think we had a squad that was able to play, able to be cohesive, able to be attacking, to take the game to Napoli. I think we went there very pragmatic in the hope that we'd have enough about us to come away with a very professional 0-0 draw. On the night, we just went about it completely the wrong way.
Mick, before I come to you, I don't think we had the personnel to go there looking for a draw, and I definitely don't think he picked a team in the formation that he did and the personnel he asked to do the duties that seemingly he asked, to even remotely thinking of a clean sheet. I genuinely, for the life of me, couldn't understand James Milner. And this is not a shitting on James Milner, going to be show like bollocks to that. You guys know what we're about. We're not about shitting on legends of the club. But James Milner should not be going to Napoli in 2022, being asked to gegenpress as an 8 up against Zielinski, Lobotka, and these type of players.
And Grizz as well.
And Grizz. Harvey Elliott shouldn't be ploughed out for, I think it's pretty much every game he started, right, guys? Correct me if I'm wrong. Starting every game. And Trent, after the performances, how he kept his place in the team is beyond me as well, especially as we now know Joel Matip was fit and able to play. I thought the selection headache, I thought the selections were wild, Mick, in terms of I didn't understand it. But as I said, it's hindsight, and this guy's got far more right than he's got wrong. But I think it's fair to sometimes question that he may have got it wrong. And this is one of those occasions. And I'm absolutely agreeing with Steve, because that was in my agenda. And I was going to come to Conroy and you about it in terms of you can't get any low than this. And comparing it to the Spurs moment. And Steve, I want to ask you, what is it with the start, Steve? This is the 7th opponent we've had this season, and all 7 have outrun us. This is the 7th game, and 5 out of the 7 games we've lost the lead. We can't keep doing this, Mick. What the F is going on here?
Yeah, I know, and that's why it's so frustrating, because it's so un-Klopp-like, because we're so used to us being really high pressing, And it's I mean, it all every time I think about anything, it all just comes back to the personnel we've got available. And I know people will then just counter that with where we should have signed and maybe we should have. And obviously we've now got Mello in as a kind of a stopgap, I suppose. But yeah, asking James.
Just a very quick one about Arthur Mello. For me, it was so worrying to see he's not even remotely close, guys, to starting a game. He's not even remotely closely match fit to start in a game. And I hate saying that. And that's another spear in the hearts of many that are thinking Arthur Mello is going to be the answer to our problems. That is another shit show of a signing. I've made it very clear before people say, oh, well, we brought one in. But sorry, Mick, I interrupted. But it was quite apparent. I don't know if you guys saw it. He is so far off starting for me.
Yeah, I think you could see it when he came on. And what did he get? He got like 10, 15 minutes of the end. He was obviously trying to get on the ball and stuff. But when you come in, it's hard enough when you're match fit. It's a different ball game. Even if he was match fit, trying to come into that game when we were getting ran all over the shop and he was trying to been asked to get brought on and kind of get his foot on the ball and get us back in the game. It was too much to ask, I suppose, at that point of the game with 10 minutes to go. We were kind of just winding down the clock and doing damage limitation at that point. So yeah, I just think it's like I expected Klopp to play Milner, to be honest, because I didn't expect him to change it up in a game like this. I expected him to go 4-3-3 and play Milner, and I expected him to play Matip. I didn't expect him to play Gomez. Not like you mentioned, Grizz. Like if Matip's back fit, I thought in a game like this, albeit Gomez has done well in the games previously, but like you said, hindsight's a wonderful thing because Gomez just was really, really bad on the night. A lot of very strange decisions in terms of could have went back to the keeper a couple of times, didn't do it, trying to dribble with the ball, lost it, and stuff like that. So, I mean, and it takes these point, like Thiago obviously came on and Klopp mentioned it after the game. That was the first like counter-pressing moment in the game when after Thiago comes on. And it's like, that shouldn't be the case. Like that is like ridiculous. And he must be, it's embarrassing really that it took Thiago to come on the field for us to start to like put a tackle in. And it was like one of them, like, he was putting tackles in and I was like, yes, here we go. Like, just put a foot on the fucking ball. Like, it's not much to ask in a Klopp team. That's the least you want from a Klopp team. You want someone to get stuck in and do the hard yards. And for Thiago to be the only man to be doing that at the moment, whether it's fatigue, whether it's form, whether people are just absolutely shattered, whether it's just, I don't know, whatever it is, it needs to change quicker. But I think like, so Thiago was on the bench. We had Mello on the bench, of course. We also had Bajcetic on the bench. So it's one of them, like, you'd have to change it completely and go 4-2-3-1, which I think for Klopp.
What have we got to lose? But what have we got to lose?
I understand. Yeah, exactly. I understand. I completely agree. I would have loved it if the lineup came out, it was 4-2-3-1. I would have been absolutely made up. But I just think Klopp in these type of games, he doesn't want to take a risk that is too much, maybe. In terms of maybe like Steve said, he wants to keep us rigid, but I think we were stuck in between like 7 different minds in that game. It was like, we need to be sturdy at the back. We also need to have the midfield, play some experience in there. Try and I don't know. It was just a mess from the beginning. I think first 45 seconds, Osimhen hits the post, and it was one ball over the top. He goes past Van Dijk, but Osimhen's already on the run, and Van Dijk's looking behind him, going, "Who's behind me here?" And then Alisson comes out, misses it, and you're like, 45 seconds. That was just like big red warning sign, and then obviously the penalty comes 4 minutes after. But yeah, like Eunice says there, Milner and Elliott is 8's already a risk. Of course it is. Like, it's always going to be a risk, but it comes down to who we've got available. That's literally whatever scenario you think of, it always comes back to who is available, because like Jamie mentioned and said it very eloquently, like a Klopp system is it's predicated on the people that are available. It's made for the people we have available. So if those people aren't available, the drop-off at the moment is too much, especially Thiago not being available, Keita not being available for whatever mad reason it is at the moment, we don't know. But there's too many people not available, and when we haven't got maybe large amounts of quality in certain areas where we need to have the quality, that's where you see the drop-off, and that's when you see the drops in form. Like you mentioned, Trent, like just being like, the ball's over his head and he's like, can't be arsed running back, I'll just jog. And it's like, it's stuff like that shouldn't be acceptable. But the funk that we're in at the minute, I think it's just kind of a team thing where we're like, well, yeah, we're going to get beat. The goal goes in, like our heads go down, and that kind of shouldn't be happening. Like I think last year, and then even this season as well, like the first couple of games, and even still recently, like conceding the first goal has just been a feature of our game. But I think the end of last year, when it was happening, I think we won 3 of the 4 that we went behind. I think we drew with Spurs. I think we beat Villa, beat Southampton, and beat another team after going behind. But we had the quality available to get back into those games, and we had form as well. Form was on our side, and we had the team available. At the moment, when we go behind like that, I think it just really messes with our head. And I think something like also Jamie mentioned, if we need to just get some scrappy wins on the board. I think if we score first in some games, I think we'll be all right.
Might help.
Yeah, maybe don't concede. That might be a start as well.
Well, that's it. Like, if you just get as fucking basic as it is, just get the first goal. That's basically what you want to try and do. Get some positivity. Get your tails up, and then you've got something to hold on to and build on, rather than just going, "Oh, lads, are we going to concede the first goal again?" And it just vicious circle.
See on that, Mick, though. So see what we're talking about here. Sometimes it's like the one frustrating part about the Napoli game as well, though, is it's not like you lock in your system and your formation and the positions, right? And that's you can't change it during the game. 3 minutes in, Highline's not working, right? So as much as we are talking about a pragmatic approach, if you watched that game and you just came down to that earth, you would say that was the furthest thing away from a pragmatic approach you've ever seen, because they're trying to play a high line with the personnel in place. You're right, you can't do it. So firstly, to even try it, if it is a mess or trying to do it that way, whatever, they're still trying to play a high line. So do you not watch that and be like, do you know what, this is not working, drop back 5-10 yards?
Yeah.
And but that shouldn't be a conversation after the end of the game, because
that's not a lack of pragmatism to play with a high back line, because
Steve,
it's been working for us. But no, it isn't working now.
It isn't working. But if it's not working 10 minutes in and they're doing you, maybe I'd change it during the game. You are allowed to. It's not against the rules.
Of course you are, but it's not a sign of a lack of pragmatism to play with a high back line. I kind of urge you to say you can't say it's pragmatic if you're playing with a high back line.
No, let's take that away, right? And just talk about the overall approach, though, like the way where we're trying to press from the very start. That's not a pragmatic approach. We're not trying to play in the counter. We're trying to put a 35-year-old doing gegenpressing. That's not pragmatic. Pragmatic is getting in a solid, compact position and playing on the counter, right? Well, that's the way I view it.
Agree.
Right? So sorry, I mean that is the pragmatic point, and I meant the high line is a different thing, Steve. But what I meant is, like, you can see that 15 minutes in, there's no reason you can't say drop back 10 yards, 5 yards.
No, you're right, Grizz. Can I just say something that covers the super chat as well, because it's an interesting point, and obviously thanks for the support. We love it when these guys do that. In front of your high back line, the 6 guys in front of your high back line have to win all their individual battles. We didn't win one. We didn't win one battle in front of the back 4. So straight away, your game plan with the high back line is fundamentally flawed, because you've got runners all over the place, because people aren't winning their battles. In terms of James Milner's position, the last time we played with a flat midfield 3 was when we had Jorginho Wijnaldum in the side. The left-hand side of the midfield plays in a slightly more advanced position than the middle and the right, because you can't ask Thiago to do Wijnaldum's job. So we've evolved our midfield 3 into pushing Thiago slightly further forward to be more of a link player as opposed to a recycler. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely spot on. I'd say, yeah.
So what Milner's trying to do is the Thiago role. He's not playing as an advanced state. If anything, fair play for Milner for trying to get something going on the creative aspect of the team in that position. However, I agree with what you said earlier on. He should not be starting football matches away in the Champions League with Napoli. He's a guy that you bring on with 15 minutes to go, just to manage out the game, to take Henderson off if he's playing, to take somebody off to bring him on, so there's a voice, so we've got an experienced head to manage the game. He got booked inside of 8 minutes. He had to play 82 minutes like he was made of China. He couldn't put a tackle in for 82 minutes. That puts our idea of a press, because a press is an aggressive press, and it sometimes draws fouls, and it certainly will from James Milner. That made James Milner pretty much a voice and some experience without being a combative centre midfielder. You can't get booked at 8 minutes away in Europe. You just can't do it.
There was Sorry, Conor, did you want to come back on that?
No, just to say, I agree with Steve there. It was just to say that the pragmatism thing, absolutely. The pragmatism and the high line, two different things for that game. But it was just, again, like, you can see that we all have eyes and we're watching that game, and you can make changes during the half. Like, it's not just let's wait, till, because at the end of the day, we didn't sort that and it was 3-0 at half time. So I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but that was quite clearly going to happen because they're getting constantly.
I want to stick with you, Conroy, and I've started a chat here. Sorry, as usual, the chat's been amazing. There's over 500 of you amazing people in here, but apparently we've only got about 70 likes, which is quite embarrassing, like Liverpool's performance in Napoli, really. Yeah, exactly. The least you can do, guys. I like this comment, Conroy, and I'm going to come to you first on this. And it's true. We've been playing in a system in a way, a lot of it's based on muscle memory. I think Steve's touched upon it in previous show. We've spoken about it. The players know their roles almost, whoever comes in to a T, because they've been watching and they train in the same way, and we try to play on all levels in the same manner. And he says the players' muscle memory is to be aggressive and plan the counter with triggers. It always has been under Klopp, and I don't know if it always will be. We'll see now going into the future. When not in form or tired, this can lead to disasters, though. And we very quickly and very early in the game saw these disasters happening. Now, this is what I mean about the previous super chat, or what the previous super chat meant in terms of flexibility, or the lack of flexibility, to change the mentality, to change maybe not the personnel. If we haven't got the personnel, as you guys have alluded to, then maybe we haven't. But we most certainly have the option of being more pragmatic, being more defensive, it's not a crime to change in a one-off game, even a half, when you see things are going so bad. Yet we were just brain dead. And even from Jurgen Klopp, we were just brain dead. And one of the accusations of Trent and Gomez was I don't know if this is a word, maybe Jamie and Steve might help me out, brain deadness. Like, they were brain dead. Or was it something else, Conroy? Because we've spoken about Spurs and we've spoken about
Lovren
performances that have ended careers. Now, I'm absolutely making it clear before people say, oh my God, he's called the death of Gomez, the footballing death of Gomez and Trent. But my God, it was horrific watching them too.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, if you're just watching the game as a completely neutral aspect, like Gomez had the shocker. I don't even think he started the game. I said that already. I don't think he started the game that bad, but as soon as he made his first mistake, his head was gone. Very similar to Lovren against Spurs. And obviously Lovren was not as well liked, and I'm not comparing it to, because Gomez has obviously got a lot more Premier League win centre back. He's very, very good, and he'll come back from this. But yeah, that was a particularly bad one. From him, I'm sure he'll come back from it. It's really just bad timing as well, because he was the alternative to cover Trent now, because you could put Gomez at right back, but I don't know what you do now, because they both had a terrible performance. I think the Gomez one, though, I'll get over it quick. I think, going back to Jamie's point on Trent, I think not running's unacceptable. That is unacceptable.
What is it?
You could be
what's your opinion? In fact,
decision making, but
this is open to all of you. What is it? There is something. There is something.
Well, either way, if he's not fit enough, then he shouldn't be starting. You can't just try to get energy during the game. I understand people have tried to say that, but come on, like, I'm not. You can make mistakes. I can accept that, but you can't not try it back. Like, come on, it's like, let's not take the piss here. You know what I mean? It's playing professional football. As Steve said, these are top athletes to a certain extent. And if it is a medical thing, then that's bad management. He shouldn't be starting. But either flip of the coin, it's either on him or it's a management issue. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like, that's a couple of times now. It's very easy to try and legislate for it because he's Trent, because he's just the playmaker in a team. He creates so much through him. It goes through him, but that's not acceptable. You can sugarcoat it any way you want, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a complacency thing. I'd like to hear what other guys think as well, but the truth is, there's a few occasions now, so it's not a one-off, and hopefully it's the last time we see it, but we'll see.
If Jamie's got an opinion on that, feel free to jump in while I read out the super chat. Yo, what's good? Not a lot at the moment, mate. It says, disagree. Milner was not playing Thiago's role. Thiago is our controller. I didn't once see Milner trying to do that. He was up and down the pitch. Yes, Steve.
Can I touch on? Well, okay, and I agree. He wasn't playing Thiago's role in the sense that he wanted the ball under pressure. He was the catalyst to everything that was good going forward. When you give a penalty away in the 3rd minute, then you get booked in the 8th minute, you've got this internal desire to improve and make up for that. So he's trying to be everything. So yes, he was running up and down the pitch like a lunatic at times, not doing what we needed him to do. I didn't suggest for 1 second the guy has the same skills and the same attributes and the same capabilities as Thiago, but he did play on that left side of the midfield, and that left side of the midfield does not line up in a straight line with the other two anymore. That hasn't been the case since we won 28 out of 30 points with the two young lads playing at centre back. So in terms of that, he's right. He didn't play the Thiago role in terms of being a controller. We didn't have one, and that contributed to our problems. Because if you can't control the ball, what's the old saying? If the opposition don't have the ball, they can't hurt you.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. No, I didn't think about that. The penalty and then the booking, there is probably like a saviour complex in his head. His head probably went a little bit. I'm not saying went to the same extent, but you know what I mean? He's probably like, I need to do something. Even when he gets booked, he's probably trying to kickstart a tackle. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point as well. I'm not thinking where he probably was trying to actually make up for that at the start as well. So that's a good point as well.
Jamie, I want to skip on from that point, to be honest with you, because it's true. It's so weird. Unless you've got a definitive opinion on the issue with Trent, whether it's a tactical issue, mental issue, fatigue issue. Have you, sorry, before I move on? Or is it, we don't know?
You know, I don't think we know. And I think it's good to give someone time to have a second go, because you never know what people are going through in life. Maybe he's had a situation outside of the field that's affecting him. So we never want to judge before we know any information. But I will just say, it's one thing to be the person who's had to endeavor your entire life, and that's your persona and who you are as a person. It's another thing to then achieve your goals and then maintain and deal with the pressure of being a superstar at 23 years old. So this is realistically a new phase of Trent Alexander's career as a player, because he's won every single club trophy with the exception of like the Europa League. So he's done it all. He's completed club football, so to speak. So I'm not going to use that as an excuse, but I also think he is a young man and he will continue to develop. But at the same time, as Conroy said, and I've mentioned as well, you can't be walking in football matches at the highest level, because you'll get killed. And so I'll leave it at that.
I want to stick with you and speak about another two, I found strange talking points, but talking points nevertheless, this week, or maybe the last couple of weeks. And that's the criticism of Elliott in this team, and his role, or the role he plays in this Liverpool team, which is correlated to the role of Salah, and therefore maybe possibly affecting the output of Salah, if you know what I mean. So look, there's been suggestions, even though, and Diaz as well. Let me add Diaz into the mix as well, because there's been suggestions of Luis Diaz and Harvey Elliott changing the dynamic of this Liverpool team, even though, in my humble opinion, and I think maybe you guys will all agree, or maybe someone doesn't, and feel free to jump in if you don't, even though they've been individually probably the best performers. So Harvey Elliott, Luis Diaz, in my opinion, have been individually probably the best performance. Yet there's been suggestions from people that study the tactical side of things far deeper than I do. Suggestions that they've hampered the overall function of this Liverpool team. Would you have an opinion on that?
The thing that I will say is I tend to go with a glass half full approach for most things in my life, not just in football. And so what I would say to that end is that this system that Klopp has given to our players has been something that's been in motion since October of 2015. And so I know Elliott got some games last year, and he started some games last year before he was injured. And I know that Diaz has been here since January, but the connection that Sadio Mane and Andrew Robertson had was not something that was developed overnight. Andrew Robertson didn't start from the get-go when he transferred in from Hull. That connection is something that spanned the 6 years that, or the 4 or 5 years that Sadio Mane and Andrew Robertson had both been playing together. And I will admit, I have not seen as many inverted runs and interchanging to get either the winger or the outside back to the byline to get cutbacks or chip crosses in to the back post or squared right to the penalty spot. I haven't seen that as much as years prior. But I do believe that when things get situated in terms of having more senior players there in the midfield, it won't be a young player playing with Milner, for example, where realistically both of them have jobs where their lives would be so much easier if they were playing with a Thiago or potentially an Naby Keita or potentially a Jordan Henderson, where you have someone there who has the legs, but not only has the senior perspective. And I know Milner does as well, but he's just not got the legs anymore. I think everyone can agree with that. And so going off of that, with Elliott, he's incredibly creative and great in tight spaces. But the thing that I notice is in terms of getting the game to be where you want it to be as fast as you want it to be, I don't think that he has the rhythm yet with the forward line, which is because, as I believe it was Steve or Mick had said, not only is this a forward line that's new for most of the Liverpool players, it's new for Harvey Elliott. I mean, he was playing with Sadio Mane, Diogo Jota, Mo Salah, and Bobby Firmino at the start of last season. And now he's getting back into a situation where he's starting with Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez, who I think he only started to come back, was it February when Harvey came back? And so that would
completely different.
Yeah, that would have been a month after Diaz had been there. So I believe that with time, Arsene Wenger has put it this way before. You pay for the development of young players with points. And unfortunately, we are in the situation where we are paying for those points because we don't have our other senior midfield players there to partner with him.
Steve, I don't know if you've seen these suggestions, articles, columns, whatever, about the positioning of Harvey Elliott in relation to Mohamed Salah. Do you see Mohamed Salah's role or position different from seasons gone by, games gone by? Do you see a concern in Mohamed Salah's form, approach, positional play, and the same for Harvey Elliott?
I don't think Harvey Elliott's the issue. If anything, if you look at completed passages of play, forward-looking passes, Harvey Elliott probably leads the stats for Liverpool in regards to that. So I don't think Harvey Elliott's the problem. Harvey Elliott's paying the price for what we perceive is a new position for Mo Salah, and that's much further out in the wing. The bigger problem for Mo Salah is that he plays in the space that Darwin Núñez is using to isolate central centre-backs. So take the chance against Everton, the Pickford one he pushed onto the bar. That was taken from what Evan would call the half space between the centre-back and the right-back. Well, that's where an inverted winger wants to run to. So he can't go there because he occupies the same space as Núñez. Núñez does not get that shot off if Salah's in that position because there's nowhere for him to run to. And that's why I referenced that we still need to learn about where Darwin Núñez's football IQ works and where he can learn about what we do. We're not there yet, and he's occupying spaces that Mo wants to run into. we tend to find, and it's always been the way for Liverpool, when we come under pressure and we don't play well, Mo drifts out wider and wider and wider and wider. And for long spells in the Everton game, within 10 minutes, Everton had completely neutralised Elliott and Carvalho by giving us 5 in the midfield and almost 1 in front and 1 behind. So they took them out of the game completely. And what they then said to Liverpool was, we're going to surrender a little bit of space out wide, and you're going to have to go inside to out and long for your transition to work. So we were hitting 40, 50-yard balls into the corners, hoping to get Diaz and Salah on the ball. And as a result of that, Salah's got to drop wider to pick up the ball. I think there's a touch of lazy journalism going on here with regards to Mo Salah's positioning. We're trying to accommodate an orthodox number 9 into our front line. And that's really difficult because under Jurgen Klopp, we've never done that. Not once in 6 years have we had an orthodox number 9. You wouldn't even call Divock Origi an orthodox number 9 because he was a very, very willing channel runner when he played, when he felt like he wanted to contribute. There were games that he did very little. There were other games when he led the line in the channels as well. And we kind of expected Núñez to drift to the left-hand side and do a lot of work out there. But Diaz has been occupying that space. So there's an awful lot for this team to learn. And the danger is, and that's a really good point that Jamie makes about what Arsene Wenger said, whilst you're developing the youngsters, you will lose points. Whilst we're developing a new shape midfield, which is what we saw against Everton, and a new front line when Núñez is inside, it's very hit and miss. And I think it's very easy to look at Salah and say, he should be on 6 or 7 goals by now. The telling stat a week ago about Mo Salah was there was not a player in Europe who'd created more big chances than him. So we can't say he isn't contributing. What we can say is he's going out of his way to try and assist Darwin Núñez's introduction into the side. And Núñez likes to isolate centre-backs one-on-one, and he chose Tarkowski in the derby. So he went into the space potentially that Mo Salah would want to run into. And this is the reason why I'm not a big fan of 4-2-3-1, because you kill off the space these guys want to run into.
Go on, Jamie, before we get to make go.
I just want to come on to Steve's point about Darwin, that I feel like now we can look back and say this was extremely influential. Darwin stunted his development in the squad with the red card. And so we're looking back at it from a perspective of, had he not got that red card, potentially our system could be further developed by 3 games. Obviously, we'll never know, but this is one of those things at which maybe potentially you look back at the end of the season and you say, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda, in regards to injuries, things happening and of that nature. And so I think it's important to address Darwin probably feels like he has to overcompensate for the time missed, but you can't get anything organically in there to make up for time within a squad that you're developing all together and getting chemistry.
People, nearly about 570 of you in here. Amazing numbers for a non-footballing weekend. Hit that like button for me. I'd really appreciate that. Mick, I'd also appreciate a change in form, fortune, tactics, personnel. I'd appreciate it all, man. Jurgen Klopp after the game was, I reckon, I don't know, maybe you remember another time, I thought he was as dejected as I've seen him. Probably in the COVID season. And obviously there were so many external factors, including the passing away of his father. Mother, I beg your pardon. His mother, and obviously the situation with the centre-backs and everything he went through. So that was an anomaly. But apart from that period, which was, we don't wish it on our worst enemies in that situation, from a footballing and sort of general demeanor, I remember him being like this in this, like I think Conroy said, the Spurs game. And that was the watershed moment where we kind of fucking went mad after that and remained, I think, pretty much, I think it was a couple of defeats in 18 months or something mad like that, right? What needs to happen now, because we've got this enforced break, and I think it's come at a brilliant time for us. We play Ajax, that's going to go ahead, but we don't get to play possibly for another 3-4 weeks in the league. What do you expect to happen, and what do you think will happen now that will change the fortunes of this still great. I was going to say once great, still fucking great club. Because something's got to change. Something's got to give, Steve, Mick.
Yeah, just on the Klopp thing, like I think, yeah, I remember he got asked like, will you concede the title now, Jurgen? And he kind of just said, yeah, I concede the title. And that was kind of like a moment where you like, yeah, and it's we're back. Well, we're not at that level, obviously, at the minute, but yeah, it feels like that way just because we've set our bar so high. So when you ultimately fall below that, you feel it a whole lot harder. Yeah, I'd love to know what we need to do. I think getting players back is as easy as it is. That is like it's the simplistic thing. Getting Thiago back helps us a lot. But I think we need to, like everyone's quite rightly addressed, like the whole Trent thing and Gomez and Matip and maybe getting Khanage back into the team. I think he's back after the international break. The more players like this we get back into the team, it's as simple as the better we'll be. And I think that's it. Like, I think it's quite interesting the chat that Jamie and Steve just been having about like Harvey Elliott and like, is he occupying spaces and stuff like that? And I think it's one of them, like when you're not informed, those players are like they can really help you because they get on the ball and they'll try something that it's just like Steve mentions, it's muscle memory. They're not thinking about what they're doing. It's like Sadio Mane when he was in top form for us. Defenders didn't know what they were going to do. Defenders didn't know what he was going to do because he didn't know what he was going to do. I think Harvey Elliott and Diaz play like that, but then I do get that it does have a effect on what we're trying to do as a collective because it kind of maybe slows us down. Too many touches around the box, like Jamie mentions, the overlaps and underlaps, you don't see that anymore. But I think that comes with time, and I think Harvey Elliott played last year and he was in a team that was pretty much full strength, played against Burnley, played against Chelsea. We were very structured, and he could come into that team and he'd be like, right, I know what I'm doing. Everyone else is pretty much nailed on. I can come into this team and have an effect on it. But now it's more like Elliott's now the man to go to in the midfield, and we're expecting him to do the creativity.
Which is mad.
It's craziness. It's absolutely mental. Like, just fast forward a year from what he was doing, and we were like, oh, this kid's going to be good coming off on the bench, maybe starting a few games here and there. And now he's playing every game. And we're like, oh, we need Elliott to play because we need him to be the guy to chase stuff down, to make stuff happen, to be that link man. And I don't think it's fair to expect that of a kid as young as he is, as great as he is, because we all know how great he is and how good he's going to go on to become. He's going to be absolutely amazing. But I think it's just, yeah, like Jamie, that Wenger quote's absolutely boss, to be fair. Like I've heard that, and it's that kind of stayed in my memory. I remember him saying that, to be fair. And it's like it is that, like, we're these players that we're trying to blood, the Carvalhos and the Elliots and Diaz to extent. He's been in the country 8 months, and we're still hanging our hat on him in terms of like, go on Diaz, go and do something, lad, go and score a goal for us. He's trying to still get used to the Robbo and Tsimikas, and that comes with time, and we need to allow that time, but we can't allow that time because we need results now. So it's like we're in a bit of a vicious circle in terms of we need instant results, but we also need to expect maybe some bad results here and there if we haven't got the personnel. It's just unfortunate at the start of the season has been a little bit derailed by everyone getting injured. I think if everyone was fine, we'd be in a much better position. I think because it's the start of the season, everyone's like, oh yeah, the Klopp's done, Klopp's legacy's over, and the usual crap on Twitter that you're always seeing. You just think you're just hilarious. But I think we just need to, like I said, simple as getting Thiago back, Khanage back. Getting
Jota's the one I'm really looking
Jota,
for.
yeah, Diogo Jota. Oh, of course, what a guy! Like, we need him back and firing and staying fit. I think that obviously Nuno's been out the team, and I done like I put a tweet up, and it went a bit mad. To be fair, it was just like I was just sat having a coffee in front of the telly, and I was like, how many minutes has Nunes played? I had a little look, 235 minutes, which is 2.6 games. That's the equivalent. 2.6 games he's played. And I know we can say it's his fault, and it is his fault, because that should be 5.6 games, because he would have played probably all those games. That coincides with Bobby then coming into a little bit of form, scoring some goals for us and doing well. But you can't expect a Bobby Firmino, who has been so good for us for so long, to then continue to be good at his age with the older legs and trying to. The Napoli game, for example, where he's getting balls fired into his feet, and we're like, right, Bobby, make that stick, turn and run. And there was one moment where I just had to laugh.
It was particularly bad in that one, though. It was
It got
ridiculous at
fired
some
into his
points.
feet, and he touched it, and I was like, right, it wasn't a great touch. It bounced off a Napoli leg. He got back to him, and then he turned and ran, and it was like, it looked like his legs were just strapped
No,
to
but
the
see,
field.
you've seen that before, Mick. You can tell 5 minutes into a game if Bobby's going to have a good game or a bad game. 5 minutes. I've told Grizz before, like, he tries that flick ball against United. That's just the way he thinks about football. And it doesn't matter if you're roaring at him, if you're quiet, he's going to play that way. And you can tell, I don't know if you guys agree, I can tell within 5 minutes if he's going to have a great game or a disaster. 9 times out of 10, it's usually correct.
This is it. This is, I don't know if it's uncanny. I don't know what the word is. I don't know. This is scary. But I can tell that for about 4 or 5 of our players. I can say that for Fabinho. I know I've been on his case for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and people have, okay, maybe it's a fully fucking blown agenda now. Fuck it. All right? No, I don't care. Right? But it's got to the point where I know Fabinho is going to have an absolute shocker and a stinker, like the way he starts off games. But before we got onto the real main buzzword and end the show and the main talking point and the buzzword of the week, very quickly, guys, just round the panel, all of you, Elliott's best position going forward in his Liverpool career. Conroy.
I mean, it's a hard. I think quick one. You're going to say I think it will be centre mid, but I just want to add. I actually think a lot of people just absolutely rule him out for playing wider. I actually think he's got the intelligence to play out there. Maybe not necessarily the way we play it with the pace, but I think he could do a job out there. But primarily, I think it has to be in the middle with our current setup, or in a 4-2-3-1 or whatever, but more centrally.
Jamie.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with Conroy. I see him as a center midfielder. I just think that right now, center midfield is, for me personally, the most tactically demanding position on the field. Maybe fullback is the most physically demanding position on the field. And so as you get older as a center midfielder, you gain more experience, and I believe that you become better. And so I feel like he will develop into a better player. He's already shown his talent, but he's suffering from the curse of success at being 19 and so talented. Getting thrown into a European away at Napoli is tough, but he'll be a center midfielder for me.
I understand I asked for a quick answer, but Conroy and Jamie absolutely ruined that. So Steve, you can give a paragraph as well, or two.
Thanks, boys. I think he's the in a 4-2-3-1, he's the one in the middle of the three potentially, because he's got that ability to see what's going on around him. I have no problem with him playing on the right side of centre midfield as things are, because I think at this moment in time, with injuries, persistent injuries to Jordan Henderson, we're not really blessed with too many options in there. And when he does give the ball away, he works as hard as anybody to win it back, and that's a really pleasing side to his game. But I think he needs to be a link player. I think he needs to be a guy that gets on the ball and makes things happen, because his first port of call when he gets the ball is to turn, look forward and play forward. And I really like that about him. So I'm not a fan of 4-2-3-1. If you play 4-2-3-1, you kill Mo Salah's effectiveness for me. But I think he will end up being a central player, and he'll end up being a creative player.
Mick, last shout.
Yeah, I agree with everyone really. Like I think he can play where he's playing now, but I think he needs to have certain personnel in there with him, so he doesn't have to do the dog work as much. And I know he does that anyway, because that's what he gets asked to do, that as a right centre mid. I think he can do that, but with the right personnel, I think he really thrives there. I think, like the comments are saying, as a 10, if we did change it, if Klopp did change it, which I mean he might, then as a 10, where you just imagine like Thiago just picking out Elliott into little pockets of space, and then Elliott just playing little lovely balls in behind for whoever's making those runs. So yeah, and I think someone put in the comments as well, like him being like slow and a bit like physicality not being great. I don't think he's slow. I think acceleration he's okay. I don't think he's the fastest, but I think he's fast enough. I think the physicality thing, he's only 19. He'll get stronger. He'll get bigger. And I think in a midfielder, like Jamie rightly says, you need to grow into that. Like centre midfield, like it doesn't matter what level you play. I played centre midfield like Sunday League, like just shit level and that. But that is the hardest position to play, because you've got to be switched on. You've got to run everywhere. You've got to be switched on what's behind you, in front of you. You've got to play the right balls. You've got to be switched on to everyone else. So Premier League, it's a different level, and I think he's got the brain, he's got the football brain, because we know that the passing, and he's 2 steps ahead in his head for someone who at that age. It's really nice to see that we've got someone like that, and someone that we can mold into something that we even better in the future. But I'll stop talking now.
He's right, though. He's right. He's right, Chris. Sorry, he's right. Footballing brain. Some of the best centre midfielders we've ever seen in our lifetime. I'm not going to name names because people think I'm comparing Harvey Elliott to them. Some of the best centre midfielders have had no pace. It's all about football intelligence.
Conroy, I want to apologise for rushing you at the start of this question. I'm so sorry. I did rush you, and then I proceeded to give everyone 20 minutes.
I agree with all those points, so that's fine. They summed it up better than I could.
But the last segment, guys, and I guess this super chat is, I've saved it for a reason and didn't read it at the time. Maybe it's sort of a great segue into the last segment. People, there's still over 550 of you guys in here. If you would all like to hit this like button, that'd be amazing. Even if you don't like to hit it, still hit it, because that'd be amazing as well. Do we think Klopp has a problem with adapting to tactics that counter his 4-3-3? I have for a while. Don't think he changes anything. He'll play into form. I think what he means by that, or pretty much I think what he means to that, is he will persist with that because it's the system he knows. It's the system that's brought us success, which leads us to his press conference and his post-match comments about that word and that phrase that was maybe taken out of context, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was reactive, maybe it was emotional, but we're going to get the panel's opinion on what Klopp meant by reinventing. Maybe we have to reinvent ourselves. Mr. Conroy.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see with the first game, won't we? For me, I think, and I've got a few examples we can maybe discuss, but for me, I think what it probably means, I'm hoping as well, is it is just a case of stick with the 4-3-3, maybe potentially a flat 3, as Steve mentioned. We'll just have to see where the personnel are to do that. That would be ideal, and be more compact as a unit and drop. Specific, my point is drop back 5 to 10 yards, because that Highland's not going to work. And I understand maybe you're looking at that depending on who you're playing, but let's just say Ajax, for example, who've got pace in behind and maybe similar to Napoli in that way. That's what I would say. You'll probably keep similar formation, potentially a flat 3 of midfield, and drop the defence back 5-10 yards. Potentially put I'm not specifically talking about personnel now, but Matip coming back I think will be a big thing as well. But on reinventing, that's what I would hope he would do. Alternatively, I'll let the other guys go there now. I've seen a few articles before I came on today, done a bit of research. A few personnel have in the chat have said as well, potentially moving to a 3. Do you know, I think looking at that, it makes sense to a certain extent. You know, it maybe gives Trent protection, gives Trent and Robert protection, allows it to maybe get back in form. And as well as you said, you mentioned Fabinho giving a bit more protection there. However, I just feel that when you do play a 3 at the back, a lot of people have a kind of negative view in that. I don't at all. I think there's some great teams. Look at Gotti at PSG now, he's playing a 3-4-3. But I do think you have to be, it's not something you can just switch to. You have to be very drilled to it, because if you're not on it, there can be spaces to be found as well. That's just my opinion. So I think I can't see that just happening straight away. Could be wrong, but I'd primarily say drop back 5 to 10 yards and potentially a flat midfield 3.
Jamie, thoughts on reinventing ourselves? What did Klopp mean? Did he mean it? Did he mean subtle changes? Was it reactive? Was he playing mind games with the media and us as fans? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, as an English language learner, I think we all have to take everything sometimes with Klopp at a grain of salt, because he's not speaking in his first language. And someone can come to me and say, oh, you know, you're BSing, you're trying to get around from the point. But in this circumstance, I think Klopp means be different as opposed to like completely change. And maybe there's a little bit of a distinction there. Maybe there isn't, depending on how you see it. But for me, I personally feel that what he means is, okay, the situation with which we have now is obviously not ideal. There are certain things that we all know are ongoing and are plaguing us to a degree. And so with the players that are coming back, I'm sure we're going to get closer to the ideal of which Klopp imagined what we would look like in a footballing sense if we had a fully fit squad from day one. And so in terms of Klopp and pragmatism and everything, I think it's really, really hard to judge, especially on the last game, because I'm going to say it. I didn't hear anyone say it yet, but in terms of it, I heard someone say it in terms of it being the most difficult game to Napoli, where you could always lose there. But also, we could have lost that game in terms of it's not going to derail our success in the Premier League. It's the Champions League. You can lose a game in the Champions League, still qualify first, and have everything be merry and rosy. And so with that being said, all of the players that come back and the more time that Darwin, Luis Diaz get on the pitch together so that they can have those relationships and chemistry, I think it only goes to further to the ideal and the ideology that Klopp would have wanted to have from the beginning, which I don't think has been realized to this point. And so I know it is very tiring to have this conversation about the injuries and when players get back, but there actually is a new signing to talk about, Arthur Melo. And when he gets bedded in, we'll see what he can do. Things will be different after the international break for sure. That's what I believe.
Steve, reinvention or get players back, get back to the basics, which for a team of the level and of Liverpool Football Club seems such a simplistic way of looking at things, but sometimes it's the simple things that lead to further glory and success.
Difficult question to answer, in the sense that I think that the high back line's been found out by the Premier League. We've been doing it for a number of years now, and I think the third man running thing is absolutely killing us. Football evolves, teams have to evolve. We've got more athletic teams playing against us now. You know, we made Anguissa look like prime Zidane midweek. This is a guy that played for Fulham, and nobody in the Premier League took a gamble on him when he went to Italy, and he's doing tricks and flicks in the middle of the park. Something's got to change in terms of how we play. Maybe Jamie's got a point, be better than what we are at the moment. There will be some tactical tweaks. If you've got no press, and everyone in the world can see we've got no press at the moment, you can't cut out the balls that are leading to third man running and killing us. You just can't stop them from happening because you can't get enough pressure on the ball. So Conroy's point about dropping 10 yards deeper. I also like Conroy's point about 3 centre-backs and playing with Trent and Robbo as more orthodox wing-backs. Reece James is lauded by everybody because he doesn't have the same defensive responsibilities that Trent's currently playing with when Chelsea play with a back five. He's got license to get forward, knowing that somebody behind him is doing the job. We've got great centre-backs. There's no reason why we couldn't try this. You lose a little bit in midfield and it changes the dynamics of your front three to play like that. But the way things are at the moment, in terms of there seems to be a different physicality in the Premier League. There seems to be a different energy about the teams that are playing against us. And whether they now think that our press isn't working, so it makes us fallible, which, by the way, we are, because the press isn't working. Maybe we need to tweak what we're doing and set ourselves up slightly differently to stop that guy running in. Marcus Rashford does it every time we play them. He just times his runs properly and he's in. And these are professional guys that sit and watch hours and hours of videos. They employ people to say, go and sit in the dark room and scout that team and tell me what we need to do. Every team's coming with the same answer.
Mick, is there an answer? Is there a way out? Surely there's a way out. We've been out of many a worse situation than this. Surely it's just a game of patience. Testing patience, I get it. It's testing our patience, but surely it's just this break's come at a great time for us. Get our players back. Ajax in the midweek, and then get to still not confirmed or unconfirmed about the Chelsea next week, but I'm pretty certain it's going to be called off. I guess it's just an amazing chance to just regroup, refresh, and that phrase that we use all the time, we go again.
Yeah, it's definitely came at a perfect time for us. Like, when you look at the table as well, like, we're only 6 points off the top. Like,
let's call it 5.
Yeah,
realistically.
I know what you did there.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's one of them. Like, you look at the league table and you're like, you kind of like, I'm surprised that we should be further away. Should we be further away because we've not been there at all? Like, in terms of what we're so used to. But yeah, there's like the 3-4-3 idea. I love that idea because I think if you play Khanage as a right of a back three, no one's getting past him. He is just an absolute physical specimen, and I think Trent's missed him, to be fair, because especially in the like, from my sins watching like some of the Real Madrid like highlights back, like there's times where Vicinius Junior is past him, Khanage just runs over and goes, "Nah, mate," just pushes him off the ball, runs past him.
I've said it. If we won that Champions League final, and of course, if Spats maybe that would have gone down as one of the all-time great centre back performances, Hall of Fame centre back performance from young King Khanage. And I'm missing him so bad. You're making me really upset. But carry on, Nick. Sorry.
Yeah, he's so good. He is so good, and it's we're talking about midfield issues and missing Jota, and Nuno's been off 3 games, but Khanage getting injured in that was at the Strasbourg friendly. I went to that, and it didn't at the time. You're just thinking, oh, he's going to be back soon, be fine, and then it's like he's not back till after the international break, and you don't realize it's one of them. You don't realize what you've got till it's gone. Like, he kind of played himself into that position. Matip was first choice. Khanage came in, done so well for so long, and then we just playing every game. He's playing pretty much every time, and you kind of get reliant on that then. And then when that's taken, that's just dropped in, and it's so good. You pick that back out again. You realize how much how good that is, how good that player is. But I don't see Klopp doing anything too drastic. I mean, he might go 4-2-3-1. I'd be surprised if he goes 3 at the back. As much as I just said, I'd love to see it. I just think he may. It's like I said before. It's as simple as. And some people in the comments have been saying it like it's as simple as getting players back. It's as simple. I mean,
Ashley nails it. Her reinvention for Klopp will probably just look like small tactical tweaks for us, similar to when we had 2 inexperienced centre backs and we became slightly more risk averse, but didn't change formation. I mean, he has openly spoken about sort of his view on 5-3-2 in the past, hasn't he? There's a famous advert that he was involved in, and he said 5 at the back. Who plays 5 at the back, or something like that? I mean, obviously things may have changed. His mindset may have changed from that. But yeah, look, I can't see a formation change, a drastic formation change like that. I agree. We may possibly have the personnel to play that. Do you remember under Roy Evans, we had that? We played that formation because we had the personnel. Jason McAteer, Bjornaby, who wasn't great, by the way, but McAteer was so suited to that right wing back. We had the 3 centre backs were so suited. Phil Babb, Ruddock, Scales, all those characters. You know, I'm not sure if we got 3 centre backs because we've all praised Khanage, and we can very much imagine Virgil playing the centre back role, the centre back role, and Matip. I can't imagine Virgil being too happy to play the left-sided centre back in his current form. Go on, Conrad.
No, I was thinking. To be honest, I think Virgil would probably be all right in the left. I'd imagine Matip would be your centre one.
Yeah, no, I agree, or Virgil, but I can't. But what I said is I can't imagine Virgil or Matip being the third or the left centre back, or even the right. I suppose you could play Khanage left centre back.
Yeah, because he's played there before, hasn't he? Yeah.
I think Virgil likes to shepherd people away from the goal, so I think playing
a bit too much these days.
Sometimes, yeah.
These days he's shepherding into the fucking goal these days. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, give him the left-hand side then and show him the touchline, mate. That's kind of where that would work.
It is a logical, like, see, the more you talk about it, the more you understand the approach, because like some teams who don't use it don't have the personnel. But I think even like he's not in great form after last week. But even like a Gomez, he's an athletic centre back who could play one. He'd probably suit a free, isn't he? Someone said you could have Fabinho in a free as the centre one. I don't know how you feel about that as well. Someone suggested that. But for me, the more you talk about it, I completely agree. I just can't see it happening.
Yeah.
If you have the right, left and right centre back, Nat Phillips could even play in a back 3 because he'd be a phase 1 ball winner, and the other 2 guys would pick up the bits and pieces.
Play around him. Yep.
But guys, something needs to change. Something will change. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But before we end the show, very quick shout out to the sponsors, our amazing sponsors, futcard.com. Go and check out their website. Type in RedFellas, 15%. Choose whatever you want, whether it's a custom-made card like like that in the background. Look at that. Look at that face. Look at that expression. Look at those stats. Amazing. Get your kids pictures on that. Get your grandparents pictures on that. Get anyone you want pictures on that. It's brilliant. It's amazing. The quality is superb. You get 15% if you type in RedFellas in the discount store. What more do you want? You can get banners made. You can get prints made of memorable situations, goal line clearances, sendings off, anything you want. Request it. Go in the chat, request it. It's so useful. We go to Ajax, people. No, Ajax come to us. Ajax come to us Tuesday afternoon. Surely we get our first win on the board. Surely the crowd's up for it. Surely Jurgen Klopp will be emotional and absolutely motivated. Surely the players will be motivated up for this. Surely the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold knows what it means to play for Liverpool Football Club. He's a local guy. He will be hurting as much as us people, as much as we can't see it right now, and we're accusing him of all sorts. This guy bleeds and lives and has lived and been born to play for this football club. He will know what it takes. He will know what it means to play for this football club. Same with Virgil van Dijk. My God, you guys don't think Virgil van Dijk is looking at replays and thinking, that's not me? Virgil van Dijk, that was not me, giving 2 penalties away this season. When was the last time we saw Virgil van Dijk give away such soft penalties in the past? You know, Bobby Firmino will look at himself. Fabinho will look at himself. Everyone. And Jurgen Klopp will be looking at himself and thinking, we're so not Liverpool Football Club right now. But I do hang on to the hope that things will change. I do, because that's what we do. We don't walk alone. We don't just give up on our team. We don't stop our support for this magnificent football club. Champions League is our home almost. You know, this is what we live for, to play in the Champions League, and we tackle Ajax next, and then we wait, obviously, from the rules and regulators in terms of what's our next league game. And we keep going, people. This has been a fantastic show. I've really enjoyed chatting to you guys. You guys make me feel so good about life, even though Liverpool have tried their best in the last few weeks not to. Hope I've had a similar impact on you guys as well. Thank you very much. People in the chat, you've been amazing. The level of respect, the level of education for us in sometimes correcting us when we've given the wrong fact out is beautiful. This has been your RedFellas on a Sunday night. We hope to bring you loads of content this week based around the Champions League, pre-match, post-match. And then we're all begging Evan to get a draft sorted so I can slaughter Steve and Conroy again. In fact, I didn't. Actually, I lie. I didn't even fucking win, did I, last time?
No, I won last time. All right. You won last time. Okay.
You
won the time before, to be fair. You won the time before. It was very close. It was very close.
Has Steve won yet? Not to wind him up.
No, because our chief social influencer keeps putting snidey comments in on, and they're all related to my team.
I know. It is good. Like, it might be the best. I think it's my favourite show ever. Like, the draft is amazing.
After RedFellas.
No, it's RedFellas is the go-to, but of a draft,
I know what you mean.
I've never laughed so much, and every time something else happens, like I always laugh when Steve was describing what his fullbacks were doing, and I just imagine Pep Guardiola when he does that thing, you know, moving the places over.
Steve was confused. It was last resort.
No, listen, Steve sells it better than anyone else. Like by the end, I'm like, he's got the best team, even though it might not.
No, he does. He absolutely turns into the professor when he's trying to make sense of. I can't even remember his fullback.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
But we don't talk about them, Grizz. Well, you do. You talk about them on the post when it goes out, mate, don't you?
I'll tell you what. I'll stay out of it this time. I'll stay out of it.
Yes, please.
We will see. We will see. You know what it's like. We know what it's like.
You can't help yourself. You can't help yourself.
RedFellas Sunday night, sponsored by futcard.com. Hope we made you smile. Peace out. Take care.